Now we are going to talk about what are all the topics going to be involved in ASP.NET MVC. In which layer, which topic we are going to create. The first one is when you make a request comes from the client. Okay, the request is coming from the client. What will happen when the request coming from the client? Here you will have a middleware component. Always request will be detected by middleware component. Okay, when I have a middleware component, what are all the topics I am going to cover? What are all the functionalities we are going to use in this particular middleware component? Okay, the very first concept is routing in ASP.NET Core. The very first concept, routing. Second one is map controllers. Map controllers. I'll tell you why routing and map controller is needed. I'm currently in Jubilee Hills. Okay, I want to go to Amirpet. How many routes are there? There are different routes are there. But I want to take a particular route based on the request. With the help of routing and map controller, I can decide that which route I need to work on. So that is the main reason. What this map controller will do is a controller layer will have a action methods. For example, action 1, action 2. Whenever I make a request to middleware, that request will goes to action 1. That will be decided by map controller. Have you got my point? I want to go from here to where? Amirpet. Which bus I need to take? You have to go to bus stand. Bus stand will tell that in the bus stand, see, you are going to from Jubilee Hills to Amirpet. What you will do? First you need to take a bus. For that your route is from here to go to bus stand. In bus stand there is a board saying that this bus number will go to Amirpet. This bus number will go to Kokatpalli. This bus number will go to Panjagutta. Like that, every bus number will be there. Here, this will be treated as bus number. Whenever the request comes, it will detect that request with the help of map controller. The map controller will decide that this request will be served by this action method. Now, you all understand? I want to learn action method. There is a topic called action method. Okay, so what is the topic we are going to learn here in the controller? In the controller, the major topic I am going to learn is action method. Action method. Fine. I learned the action method. Action method received the request. Action method received the request and it internally talks to call a service. Okay, here I have a one more layer called service layer. I have a one more layer called service layer. I have a one more layer called service layer. What concept we are going to implement in service layer? Here the services are always in concept classes. If anything is a class, you need to create an object. In ASP.NET MVC core, you will have a concept called IOC, which we will call it as inversion of control, For which inversion of control you are going to do? Create object for the class service. The inversion of control will create service object. Okay, that object you are going to use in the controller. controller. For that, you should have a concept called dependency injection. Dependency injection. Right? Or you got my point? So this dependency injection is holding the object of this service. What the logic you are going to build in the service? You will perform business validation, business logic before it go and store in the data, business logic, etc. After creating the service, the business logic has been invoked and business validation has been done. This dependency injection will call this service. Now you see the flow. I am getting a request in the middleware, routing map controller. Controller will call an action method. To get the action method, here you will have a constructor with IOC. We will call this as dependency injection. Or you got my point? Your object will be created here of this service, and that will be injected here, and that dependency will comes here. Now you will finally have a layer called repository. You will have a final layer called as repository. This repository would contain entity framework, which is nothing but talking to the database, and that data will give back to the entity framework. In the entity framework, again classified into two types. One is code first approach, another one is DB first approach. Code first approach means I am not going to create a table directly. With the help of my C# code, I am going to create a table. DB first approach means already table is available. Based on the table, I am going to create a DB. Or you got my point? So this is the flow. Now once I get the data, this business logic will in turn will call the repository. Now you need to understand. So this repository object I need to create here, right? Again you will not create here. You will create a fourth IOC for repository. Fourth IOC for repository. That IOC, repository IOC, will comes into dependency injection of repository object. If you understand the code, this is the typical architecture. Now what will happen? My code will give you the response. This will give you the response. Again, where this response will be available? Here you can have a model layer. You can have a model layer. All these model layers are connected. Whatever the way you make a request, this model layer will be connected. This is called model layer. Okay, and here everything will be treated as properties in a class. Right? This model data is be holding. Now the data has been holded here. What will happen? This guy will internally call a concept called view. This view has a concept razor view engine. Here I am going to have two more concepts. One is called as view model, and I have a tag helpers, which is one of the important concept in ASP.NET MVC core. What tag helper will do? combination of HTML plus model, HTML tags plus model. Okay, this will automatically generate a typical HTML tags. That is why view model will comes into picture. Now, with the help of this view, I binded the data, I am giving back to this, the response will go out. Typically, whoever will comes into MVC core architecture, the major concepts you have to learn is controller action method, razor view, view model and tag helper. Here you are going to talk about routing, map controller, IOC repository. Here I am going to use a dependency injection of repository. Here I am going to use a dependency injection of service, and finally I am going to use an entity framework. If you learn this topic end to end, this is more sufficient to build ASP.NET MVC core. If it picturize that, what are all the topics are available? Overall topics. First topic, routing. Second topic, middleware. Third topic, IOC and dependency injection. Fourth topic, action methods. Fifth topic, service layer. Service are model properties. Model properties. Sixth topic, entity framework. Entity framework. Seventh topic, tag helper. Eighth topic, view model. Ninth topic, dependency IOC are there. Filters, I will teach. Filters is not important here, I will tell. 10th topic, these are all, if you required you can use it. Authentication. 11th topic, API building. What is API? This is for generating the view. If you are not having a view, only controller will directly giving to the middleware, middleware giving to means it is an API. A project doesn't contain a view and working as a controller with the model, with the service and repository, this will be called it as API. A project working with view and controller along with the middleware, we will be call it as a MVC, web application. Are you got me? So what is the difference between web application and web API? Web API only contain controller. Web application will contain both controller and view. Model is common, service is common, repository is common, middleware is common, controller is common. When you build a web application, you require a view. When you build a web API, you don't require a view. That's it. If you are not having a view layer, everything will be the same. If you need a web application to build, you require a view layer. So, out of these topics, you are not going to learn view model, but remaining everything will be learned in web API. So, this is the typical architecture of model view ASP.NET MVC core. By learning this, hardly it will take 30 hours is more sufficient. 30 hours is more sufficient because apart from these 11 topics, remaining all use and throw. If you learn this 11 topic, you can write or build a basic CRUD operation application. When I say CRUD, create, update, read, delete. That's all. I want to read data from the database to the front end. I am going to use read operation. I want to create a data from front end to the back end database, store data. I am going to use create. I want to modify data, I'm going to use update. I want to delete data, I'm going to use delete operation. Any fresher or 1 year or 2 year or 5 years experience, if they understand this and start writing the code according to these concepts, 30 to 40 hours is more sufficient to build a project. No need to worry anything. Fundamentally, you need to learn C#.NET. Before you have to come here, you need to learn a C#.NET. Right? If you are learned C#.NET, within 30 to 40 hours, you can able to build such a kind of architectural application in ASP.NET MVC core. Clear? That's all.